Welcome. This is AOP, and today we're going to talk about how to go viral without getting lucky. This is a sneak peek into the laboratory that we use to craft tweets and go viral on demand. Let's get right into it. Even before we start, I want to talk about the infinite wheel of content concept. And the infinite wheel of content is basically the idea that you're going to use your own validated content to create more content. If your audience has liked your content or your ideas in one form, perhaps they want to see more of it, and you can repurpose it in many different ways. So often, some people will go, I don't know what to tweet about. I don't know what to write about. Well, my first suggestion for you is to start asking more questions out onto the timeline. I said that before. Questions are massively underrated. They are a great source for ideas. So what you can do is you can start in the question portion of the infinite wheel of content, use it to create future posts when you pay attention to the comments. Use those posts to create lists, which are forms of prototype threads. And if your threads do really well, you can turn those into lead magnets, and you can even turn those into blogs. By the way, I want to say something about this infinite wheel. It works in both ways as well. Perhaps you're a blogger or somebody who's written lots of threads, and I'm going to actually talk to you today about how to deconstruct some of those larger works so that you can get the most out of the content that you've already created. All right, so this is the infinite wheel in action. This is just a way that you can use it, and I write tweets using all of those different methods. So you'll see me ask often questions onto the timeline, and I'm paying attention to how those questions perform. I'm looking at the comments. I'm reading every comment. So here's one. If you could recommend one book to read, what would it be? And this did extremely well for me. 2,000 likes. It's a semi-viral tweet, almost 1,000 responses. This is telling me when I'm tweeting about this, and my book tweets do very well in the form of questions, it is a signal to me that my audience really enjoys talking about books, perhaps even more than reading books. But my Twitter audience is every time I write about one of these, they're very engaged with it. They do extremely well. So what you can do is take learn from your success from a previous post, from a question post, turn it into a regular post. Talk about my audience loves books. Yeah, they're going to love. This is something that is going to be extremely relatable to them. The book is always better than the movie. They see that and it's like, oh yeah, I feel that. And then what you can do is you can take a lot of these. So you go through the comments here, read what books people are interested in. I'll pick up that there's a high amount of personal finance books that are listed. So then I can make a relatable post about books that have made me money. And these are all books that I've read, I enjoy. And what I'll do is I'll mix in books when I create one of these list threads through the use of questions. I'll look at the books that have been named, and I'll notice there's a lot of Rich Dad, Poor Dad in there. And I think it's a good book. It has made me money, so I'll put that on the list. But then I'll add a book or two that I'm very passionate. So this is kind of like a way to package the good information with the engagement information. So I really like How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill. If I made a post about it just by itself, really wouldn't do that well. But I know if I pair it up with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I really like Influence, a lot of people do. But if I pair it with the things that Your Money or Your Life, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, those popular books, I know that the tweet is going to take off. So I'm paying attention to the comments here, and then I'm wrapping it up together to get the engagement and give people good information. This is like a way to pair growth with authenticity. And then and I know my audience is really interested in the books and the advice that they get regarding personal finance. So then I'll turn that into a thread ultimately in its long form, just the steps of progression here. And then I'll talk about lessons that I learned while I was on the path to being a millionaire, because I know my audience. Every single step of this way has been validated. And we just take it to the next step and talk about the lessons that we have. This is like a really form of a short kind of book. And you could take a thread like this. And my first lead magnet was Mental Models of a Millionaire. It was kind of like a practice for me, which was these kinds of threads put into long form. You can turn them into a blog. You can turn them into a lead magnet, whatever it is. If you want to elaborate on threads that you have and take them somewhere else, I highly recommend doing it. because your audience, if they do well, if it's validated, because your audience is telling you that's what they are interested in. All right, so here's actually bloggers. This is going backwards on the infinite wheel. These are people who are bloggers and YouTubers. Too often, I believe, people are making the mistake. They have content on all of these other sites. Perhaps you're a blogger, perhaps you're a YouTuber, and they go on to Twitter and they misuse it unbelievably. They just post links to their website, which you understand that burns your engagement. That's hurting your engagement. Whenever you post straight links to other websites, the Twitter algorithm is going to deprioritize you for obvious reasons. So my biggest suggestion to people who already have lots of original content on other sites is to take the content that you've done and repurpose it into threads. Particularly threads are the best way, but you can also do it in a tweets as well. So this is Millennial Money Woman. When she started doing this, she gained roughly around 50,000+ followers in the past year. That is not an exaggeration. She was posting links to her websites, but when she made that switch, the shift to take the content that she's already done and repurpose it for Twitter, wound up blowing up on Twitter. And at the same time, her blog became more popular because she was effectively driving traffic to there by writing high engagement tweets. So these are just threads that she's writing are just basically repurposed material that she's already done before. And then inside the thread, she'll put some kind of call to action to a blog post that relates to the particular thread that was inspiring the post. The other way you can do this is kind of like how Andy did here. He's got a thread right here. He did a YouTube video on Bitcoin and his thoughts on Bitcoin. So he just takes a YouTube video, goes over the main points that he's already done in the YouTube video, and turns it into a thread. Winds up getting good engagement, lots of followers, establishes some authority on Twitter in that particular subject, and it gets his YouTube videos more clicks, which generates more revenue. So you need to be thinking about the infinite wheel of content in multiple ways, using Twitter to show you what is good. And perhaps you've had content on other platforms that does well, just repurpose it and package it up nicely for Twitter. All right, so if there's one thing I want you to learn from Create 24/7, it's how to write highly engaging posts. That's the most important thing. You might be like, well, isn't that some like No, because what you're going to do, especially if you want to make money online, is you need to effectively learn how to get people to see your posts, because then you can do something with that there. If you can't get anybody to see your posts or create any kind of organic engagement, you're not playing the game of Twitter right. You just don't understand how it works. So I'm going to give you the method. I'm going to go over this one time for you. I'm going to show you exactly how I create posts and how you can take exactly what I do and apply it to yourself and to the posts, and you're going to see a dramatic rise in engagement. So the process is called measure, refine, repeat. And there's a page or two in it in the Create PDF. And what we do is we pay attention to all of our analytics. We store all of our analytics for every single tweet. We look at the patterns in our analytics. Then ones that do very well, we'll rewrite. We'll use them as a template for future content and reposition the tweets that work. And then we'll continually repeat those onto the timeline. This is how you consistently write high engagement tweets. All right, so I'm going to show you what I do. I talked about how I use the Apple Notes, and I think Apple Notes is great to organize all of your materials. You may have another method. That's fine. I'm showing you what I do. So here's me in Apple Notes. I'll have multiple categories. The main category is called Twitter Ready, and that's like a big folder with folders underneath it that have posts that are ready to post onto my timeline, and in all the different categories. So I might wake up one day and be like, oh, it's a Sunday, I'm going to post some family feel-good stuff. Or I'm just feeling like a one-liner. Keep things simple, keep it light. Or let's go with some kind of value or thread, storms or threads. So what I'll do is, so you might be like, whoa, that's a lot of posts, but I'm going to be real. A lot of them aren't really good, but they're ready. They're kind of like in my ready folder. So I'll go through if I don't know what to tweet that day, or if I'm not really thinking about what to, all right, I'll pull something from there. And then what I'll do is I'll take the tweet and I'll put it into a staging folder. That means it's on my timeline and hasn't been evaluated yet. So cool thing about Apple Notes is you can drop and drag and it works. And it will show that on all of the different devices that so I can be on my laptop, iMac, it all coordinates with each other. And then what I'll do is after 24 hours, I will evaluate every single tweet onto my timeline. If it performs poorly, it goes back into another folder somewhere else where it gets deemed as a rewrite. Maybe the idea was good and it just didn't fire, the packaging was off. Mediocre is kind of like my audience isn't interested in this. Or it goes back into another folder that I have for drafts. It just needs a lot more refinement. If it was good, if it got over that 1% likes to impression ratio, that means there's something to this if it performed well on my timeline. So then it goes into a different subset called Twitter validated. And notice these pretty much line up. I'll have all of these here, and they tell me how the tweet performed, what the tweet was, and then all of the comments under all of the important comments under the tweet, so I can see my audience reaction to it. So that's how I get organized. It's kind of like a 3-step of writing the tweet and prepping it, right? Editing stage, I guess, getting it ready, then posting it. It goes into staging, and then an evaluation part. And this is how I'll do it. So here's a post from the Twitter Ready. I posted onto my timeline. Look, I knew this tweet was going to go over 1,000 because I've used these methods before, 1,000 likes. By age 40, you should realize that everything on the news is complete fiction. Anytime I talk about the news, it relates very well with my audience. And yes, I do believe this. This is authentic because I know I don't watch the news. I've mentioned this multiple times. It's authentic. I just know how to blend the authenticity with packaging and really make it pop. So here's what I do. I take a look at all of the analytics behind it. Here's impressions, gets over 100,000 impressions, and it gets over that 1% likes to impression ratio. It does very well on my timeline. I'll also pay attention to profile clicks, retweets, because perhaps I was tweeting for followers and I wanted a higher ratio of profile clicks. So that's another reason behind it. Or I wanted to go for retweets. I wanted to write polarizing content. But regardless, I knew this tweet was going to perform the way that it did because I've looked at so many tweets this way, and I knew that this would get a high amount of ratio for likes, especially to impressions. And not only do I just pay attention to that, it is key. It is absolutely critical to pay attention to the type of comments that you get from your audience. And I screenshot all of the best ones. So someone here mentions a book. I've never even heard of this book, Stop Reading the News by Rolf Doble. I don't even, but that's interesting. Now I have something to look up. Now I can take a look at it. Maybe my audience is interested in this book. I don't know, but they responded well to it. All news is lies and propaganda disguised as news. Ooh, that's good. That's it. What I could use are these as starting points. This is like kind of like the infinite wheel for new ideas for tweets. Here's one by Jim, who loves to post pictures and lots of really interesting stuff. But he'll come into my comments often. But this one did well. This one got 79 likes, and it is a picture of the character Cypher, who is in the Matrix, and he knows that everything's fake, but he still goes along with it. So this is telling me that my audience responded very well to that post by Jim. And what that's telling me is they like that idea. They think it's really interesting. Maybe they see themselves as the Cypher, or maybe they want to see some comments or tweets about the Matrix. Whenever I've posted quotes, interesting enough, from the Matrix, they have performed extremely well. You can use this evaluation method, the measure, refine, repeat method, especially with threads, and I want to show you how to use it with threads in particular. Threads are very powerful because not only are they going to perform very well due to authority, and we've talked about all the great things about threads, but when you do threads, you have an opportunity to talk about multiple ideas at once, and what they can do is they can tell you which ideas really relate to your audience, and that's how I often write these listicle type threads. So here's rules for life: 21 lessons every man must learn. That did extremely well. 1,000 retweets, 2,000 plus likes. So what I will do is I will collect all the information on these. I'll look at the analytics, but I'll also pay attention to which ideas popped extremely well. And I noticed that of these 21 lessons, 2 did better than the others. 1, the world does not owe you anything. So this is telling me, this is a signal that that idea is extremely strong and relates to my audience. They want to hear more about it. The other one is make peace with your parents, which again, I have tweeted often about. But what this can do is this can lead to another viral tweet, because if this performed that well inside of a thread as a single idea, you can use that by age 30. Typo. You should come to the realization that the world owes you nothing. Look how, I mean, it's tweeting well, is about paying attention to what works. If that tweet doesn't show you that with a typo and just being an absolute one-liner, some people get frustrated over this. They go, oh, well, the platitudes, they're, how about you pay attention to what works? Continually write content that your audience is interested in, and use it to your advantage, right? Okay, so I will often have people ask me, I'm doing these things, I'm putting these methods into play, and it's just not working out for me. Well, perhaps there's lots of reasons why a post may or may not work. It could be the problem could be your profile. You don't have a good brand put together. It's not doesn't relate to what you write with the kind of content that you write to. So it could be a problem with the brand. You may not have any engaged followers out there, so you're tweeting to a wall, right? And perhaps maybe you need to do some networking and joining some communities and starting to interact with other people, because your account is kind of like in that dead state. So it could be one of those reasons, but perhaps you have all of those things and you don't know why. You've had tweets work before, and now your engagement is kind of doing poorly. There is a reason behind it, and I'm going to go over the biggest reasons why your tweets might not be working. I'm not going to use other people's tweets. I'm going to use mine because I can give the best explanations for them, and I just don't think it's right to be pulling other people's poorly performing tweets and going, oh, that's not very good. So let's talk about this. The first problem is that people run into when they have poor performing tweets is they're writing tweets and ideas that have never been validated by an audience before. And that's not bad. Like, I think it's a good idea sometimes to just try different things out. And I will tweet things out and I'll just see, hey, do they like this? You don't need to choose between having a family. You don't need to choose between having a family or having money. Rich people know you can have both. So that got 200 likes. You might think that's good, but for me, that's pretty poor. I don't know who needs to hear this, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Experiment, explore, get out there and take action. All of this, these types of tweets for me, these ideas, they did not do very well. My audience isn't interested in me tweeting about those. And while I think it's pretty interesting to talk about how you can have everything you want in life, I guess other people don't. So if I want to drop my engagement, I'll keep tweeting about that. But perhaps here's on the right-hand side, me paying attention to validated material. Here's an idea from the thread. I just take the parts of a thread and turn it into a list. 1, forgive your parents, avoid negative people, do not be afraid to fail, stop caring. So all of this was validated inside of other threads that have posted before, and we frame it with social proof that I've used in the past as well. A millionaire's advice to men in their 20s. When I posted this tweet, I knew it was going to go semi-viral-ish, 2,000 likes, whatever. So this was a setup that was going to do well on my timeline, just paying attention to what works, and and then it popped off. Occasionally I'll work as a ghostwriter, and the biggest mistake I see people make is they try to do too many things at once. This is the biggest rookie mistake, and this is Twitter. People's attention spans are very short, and whenever their mind encounters a lot of friction, they're going to just shut you off. And if they can't follow your train of thought, then they're not going to work at it. Okay, it's just how people are, especially on Twitter. So here's a couple of my tweets. They're just trying to do too much at once, and they just did not work out. 5 ways to improve your thinking, probably not even validated. But at the end here, once you do this, your mind will change, your ideas will change. And I should have just went right for it and finished it right up. Here's another one. Every action assumes risk. Now, I think I like this. I thought it was a cool tweet when I wrote it because it uses contrast. And if you fall in love, you might get hurt. Now, I don't know. This was just too many things going on at once. Stop calculating it. And that one, you can't see, it got 200 likes, which is pretty low for me. So in these particular tweets, I was trying to do too many things at once, and that plagues a lot of writers. And here's better tweets that performed much better. So here's every action assumes risk. Look, instead, a life without risk is a life of mediocrity. That was just like a clever way of saying it, and it popped off 500 plus likes, one line. Instead of trying to do all of these cutesy things right here, habits of self-made millionaires, 1, 2, 3, all of these things right here. What else? 1,000 likes. All right. So just going directly for it, especially if your audience is primed with previous content that's been validated, it's going to work. The other thing that will happen is people will like to tweet, and I did this a lot in my early stages. I would just tweet about whatever I wanted to, and that's cool. Like, you can do that. You can do whatever you want with your page. But if you're having a problem with engagement, often it's going to be because you're tweeting about things that your audience is getting confused that you're tweeting about them. So if you had to hold one stock for 10 years, what would it be? I love talking about stocks. My audience, I guess not so much. 90 comments, 160 likes, But if the art of purpose asks in one word, what is your purpose? Everybody's gonna comment on. They love this. Your personal philosophy in 3 words or less, you're gonna get 1,000 likes, retweets. And you've seen Steve use those with in one word, why do people get rich, or something like that? Because he's Millionaire Habits. That's his brand. It's around these types of tweets that he's crafting, and he's asking questions that are related to what he talks about. The other reason is what you're writing or the language that you're using isn't getting a reaction from people. It just is boring. It's very vanilla, and it just lacks power. Your writing voice needs to be powerful, or people are just going to move on. They're going to tune you out. You'll just get lost in the sea. So here's a tweet that just gets lost. I don't know who needs to hear this, but life is bigger than a test score. Grades do not dictate your life. And I've written about this before, and it's done extremely well, and it's just boring. It's just a boring tweet. A great morning routine is essential. Do the hardest work. So these are 2 tweets that just do not have enough powerful language, and they're just going to get scrolled through. Meanwhile, just saying it in a better way, a more powerful way, a more interesting way. The more intelligent you are, the less you are impressed by college degrees. Again, this hones in on one idea, makes a comparison, uses more powerful language, more versus less. Or here's one about a morning routine. Wake up at 5 a.m., knock at the essentials by 10. This is the best way to live. It's a much better frame. It's the best way to live, right? And lastly, you have to pay attention to these trends and analytics, because sometimes it tweets that will do very well for a certain amount of time. Other people will start to see you tweeting in a certain way, and then they will take your strategies, and everybody will all copy them, and they will get beaten to death. So these are tweets. This is a tweet that would have done extremely well for me a year ago. 1,000 likes or something like that with one of these aesthetically pleasing list type threads. And I'm not against using those. Occasionally they'll do well for me, but these no longer do very well. And I think because people have seen them so often, or I guess people are changing and they're interested in different things. So certain tweets will get overplayed. Meanwhile, like fresh ideas that make people think, like perhaps this quote, when nobody wakes you up at night and when nobody waits for you at night, and when you can do whatever you want, what do you call it? Freedom or loneliness? This particular quote was never on Twitter. Now, that could have bombed for me because it was non-validated content, but this one did extremely well. So you're taking a bit of a risk when sometimes you go outside the box, but sometimes it's good to go against the grain and go against the overplayed hands. All right, final thoughts as I'm wrapping this up. I want you to think about this. Great content creators never gain followers. Content creators, great ones, earn followers. There's a method. All of the big content creators and people who are really good at Twitter, who have high followings, make money on Twitter, they're all paying attention to what works. They all have their systems. They all have their own laboratories. They're like little scientists when they're coming to tweets. They understand that the packaging and the way that you write things and the ideas and how you present yourself, they matter. So, what you may see is somebody with 70, 80, 100 plus thousand followers. But what I see as another content creator is I know that they've put together a really great winning profile. They write magnetic content that's centered with growth and authenticity, and they're constantly seeking feedbacks through their analytics. They are out there earning their followers, and they are out there growing their brands. Why I think this is so important? Because when you know how to write highly engaging tweets, it is the starting point for you to get people to go to websites that you want, perhaps sell your products, get the algorithm in your favor. It's going to make life so much easier. All right, so I'm wrapping this up. If you've enjoyed all of these modules from the core part of Create 24/7, take a look at all of the bonus content that is inside. We will be continually adding new content to this course. I truly believe this course is never going to end. If you have enjoyed everything that you have seen so far, please reach out to me. Let me know. Give the course a 5-star review on Gumroad. And if you want to affiliate, send me your contact information, and I would be happy to have you be part of our community. Thank you all, and I appreciate every single one of you.